Believe it or not, each of us were babies at one point in our life. Yes, each of us were so small that we could be held within our parents' arms, and we were tiny little humans. Well, most of us have grown up since then. Some of us more than others. But there's something that we learned from the very first day that we're born that stuck with us to this day. What did you do as a baby when you needed something? You would cry, you would scream, you would do everything in your power to make sure your parents knew you needed something right now. Now, I hope that you cry and scream a little bit less than you did as a baby. Who knows? But this idea of crying, it never really goes away. Now, while we don't need our parents to physically feed us anymore or to change our diapers, we still do have needs. We still do have things in our lives that cause us trouble, and so we cry out to help from our parents or from our friends or hopefully from God. Junior high can be full of many difficult situations. As an 8th grader, I remember my parents struggled financially. My parents had a divorce, and that was really hard. Or my mom got really, really sick, and that was really hard. Students, as 8th graders, you may be experiencing divorce or anxiety or depression or financial hardships, or maybe you're struggling in school or being bullied. There are so many different ways that you can experience the sin and brokenness of this world. And that's the reality of the world we live in. Each of us are faced with hardships and troubles in our lives. Well, today we're looking at the beginning of the Exodus story, and you see the people of Israel, they had been enslaved for hundreds of years. They had been beaten and mocked and scorned. All of these Israelites had known nothing except for slavery. And so we see in Exodus chapter 2, verse 23, their cry out to God. It says that years had passed and the king of Egypt had died, but the Israelites continued to groan under their burden of slavery. They cried out for help, and their cry rose up to God. You see, they had experienced the hardships of life, and they cried out to God asking for help. And you see in verse 24, it says that God heard their groaning, and he remembered his covenant promise to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And catch this part. He looked down on the people of Israel, and he knew it was time to act. God heard the Israelites groaning, he saw their oppression, and he decided to act. Tonight, we're going to be talking about how we worship a God of deliverance. God never intended for us to live in a world of sin and shame and brokenness, but that's the reality we're in. But the incredible thing about God is that he desires to deliver us out of this evil, to deliver us out of our hardships. Now, he may not deliver you in the way you're thinking tonight, but we do know this promise that he has already delivered us from the worst that there is. You see, later on in this Exodus story, God uses Moses to deliver the people of God out of Egypt. He rescues them from their slavery. And the greater story that most of us know is that you see later in the New Testament, God comes down to earth in the form of a human to deliver us from our sin. He died on the cross, and through his resurrection, we are offered new life. We can experience something greater than this world has to offer. As you enter into groups tonight, I pray that you think about the things you need to be delivered from tonight, and that you can be confident in the fact that Jesus has already overcome the world. Each of us has the opportunity to experience new life today if we choose to follow him. We worship a God of deliverance, and thank God for that. So as you head into your groups, think about the ways that God has delivered his people throughout Scripture. Think about the ways that God has already delivered you in your life. And then let's spend some time experiencing the hope that we will one day, and we've already been delivered from our death, and we will experience new life with Christ.